So, hello everyone. Welcome to the vCloud Hybrid Service Networking Technical Deep Dive, which is actually vCloud Air, so we have a nice slide about that. The important piece, especially for this session, is the disclaimer. We do actually talk about quite a lot of future stuff in this session, so these are open to change and obviously timelines as well. So basically take everything we tell you as truth until it changes, and then it's a lie. So as I said, everyone's probably aware of it now. vCloud Hybrid Service is now being renamed to vCloud Air. So every time that I or Nanad says VCHS or vCloud Hybrid Service, Nanad's going to put $5 in a bucket for me.
Am I? Okay.
Where's the $5 going? Is there a raffle for that at the end?
Yeah. It will go to charity. So charity's good, man. You can't boo charity. Come on. Yeah, it's like poor children, you know. So yeah, this is going to be a hard one if you're booing charity. So my name's David Hill. I'm a senior technical marketing architect in the Cloud Services business unit in VMware. I've been with VMware for around 4 years. I originally joined into a team called the Cloud Practice that was set up specifically to go out and learn and how to deploy vCloud Director with enterprises and service providers. So that's kind of where I started with VMware, and now I've transitioned into the vCloud Air team. Nanad?
Sure. My name is Nanad Desai. I'm in product management for vCloud Air, focusing on networking and application mobility services.
So we're going to take a look at a few areas of what the service looks like today, what the services are built on, how we connect and what we offer, and then Nanad will walk us through some specific areas about how you can bring your IP space, some use cases and security. Then I'll talk about recovery as a service, which is one of the key offerings we have. And then we've got a nice little 5-minute demo at the end just to recap what we spoke about and show you some of the interfaces we have. So what are the vCloud networking services built on? So with VMware, so it's pretty obvious that we're going to build our environments out using vSphere as a key starting point. So we have vSphere and vCenter, we have vCloud networking and security, and then we layer vCloud Director on top of that, which provides us with the abstraction layer for the cloud resources. On top of that, we have built our own vCloud Air tenant portal, and that provides us with the management and the automation that we need to deliver a cloud service as a service provider. Going forward, and you saw this in the keynote today, we're going to be replacing the vCloud networking and security with NSX-V. So that's going to provide us with all the capabilities and all the really cool networking stuff that you saw in the keynotes today. The cool thing about NSX is it's backward compatible with vCloud networking and security. So any customers that are leveraging the features within Edge Gateway or anything on premises can still tie in to vCloud Air in the future when we've got NSX fully deployed. So how do I actually connect to vCloud Air? We have a number of options, and this is kind of a high-level overview, and we'll talk a bit more in depth about this in a few slides. But essentially, we have 3 ways that you connect into the public cloud. We have over the internet, we have IPsec tunnels using IPsec VPNs, and then we have direct connect, which is like our private line MPLS, VPLS links that you purchase through telco providers. And then we also have another feature called Cross Connect, which allows you to put a rack in our data centers and connect your own physical equipment into your VMs running in our cloud. So there's a number of options that you can use to actually build out your environments to match your on-premises designs. How many people were in my session yesterday on extending hybrid cloud? Cool. Unfortunately, I've run out of t-shirts, so you're not going to get any today. But one of the key points we made in that session yesterday was when you spin up a cloud environment, one of the key things you have to remember is the considerations are the same as when you're building your on-premises data center. You need to think of this site as a virtual data center, but still a second site. So the concepts still apply when you're building your own environments. And I kind of make a joke yesterday about when you spin up these environments, you still have networking services and security to consider. So if you were to spin up a firewall and just set the rules to any, what happens? Yeah. So even though it's in the cloud and people go, ooh, it's in the cloud, it's safe. No, it's not. It's still your responsibility to manage the network and the security aspects of those workloads in the cloud. So, as I was saying, to kind of recap on what I was saying, the Direct Connect is our dedicated private connections. The IPsec VPNs, you can leverage in our vShield, I nearly said vShield then, I'm getting in trouble. The vCloud network and the security edge gateways, you can leverage that to connect an IPsec VPN to any physical device or virtual device that will accept an IPsec connection on premises. And then, of course, we have the internet, where you can literally you can serve services up to the internet, like web services or anything you want, or any if you really want to, if you're feeling brave. So, kind of high level, how you would connect an IPsec VPN. So we have an edge gateway that sits on the edge of your virtual data center in vCloud Air. Consider this the core edge of your networking. So very similar to a core switch within your on-premises environment. You connect over the internet using the standard IPsec VPN protocols, and then you can terminate either at your own physical firewall, or if you have a particular use case, which we'll talk about a bit later, you can actually spin up your own virtual edge gateways on premises and terminate there. So you get a lot of customization with what you want to do within vCloud Air with the networking. So what services do we offer within vCloud Air? We have two core offerings today. We have a dedicated cloud and a virtual private cloud. Now, I'm not going to go into great detail with these because we actually are repeating the how you extend your data center session, and that covers a lot more in-depth details with the differences between these. But a high-level overview is a virtual private cloud is a logically separated environment that's multi-tenant. So it runs on shared hardware, shared hosts, shared storage, shared networking. You get one edge gateway for every virtual private cloud that you spin up. So you can connect your workloads through that edge gateway. With a dedicated cloud, it's a bit different. You can have multiple edge gateways. You can create multiple virtual data centers out of those resources that you buy. And you have a lot more control over the networking because of the fact that you have multiple edge gateways. So you can spin up 2 edge gateways in a virtual data center, 3 if you need them, and have different routing and NAT tables going to different workloads and resources within that. So it's very, very customizable. So question, how many people actually leverage vCloud networking and security on premises today? Cool, nice few hands. Okay. How many people are leveraging F5? Awesome. We've got a nice little bit for you later. So when we look at these networking constructs, we have an external network, which is managed by VMware. So that literally sits on the outside of your edge gateway and gives you access to the internet. Within the cloud, we have what's called routed networks, and then we have isolated networks. You can have up to 9 routed networks through one edge gateway. The edge gateway actually provides 10 interfaces, but we use one of those interfaces for the actual internet connection. Then, with the isolated networks, you can create up to 20 of these within one virtual data center. So it's very, very customizable. You also get some advanced features around NAT, firewall, load balancing, static routing, and DHCP. How many people leverage DHCP in production environments? Okay. So what's your use case for DHCP? Yeah, I mean, but what kind of workloads are you doing it? Because if you think about particular workloads in production, do you use it for Tier 1 apps? What are you leveraging build for automation? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, cool. Okay. So the reason why I was asking is because a lot of environments, like if you go to big banks and things like that, they don't allow DHCP in any of their production tiers. So as this man pointed out, DHCP's use case is automatic addressing, as we know. Wow. So there's always one smart guy in the room. So. But when you think about DHCP, a lot of the times, businesses don't want to leverage that because of the way that it can be used with the workloads and connecting in there and moving them around. So they like static IP addresses so they have control over it from DNS perspective and from a manageability perspective. It's the same in the cloud. Because we offer DHCP, doesn't mean to say you actually have to leverage DHCP. It's just an offering. So if I find you, I'll give you a t-shirt for being smart. So kind of looking at the screenshots, this is a screenshot of the, and I'll say vCloud Hybrid Service because that's how the UI still looks today. So the vCloud Air UI, you get a number of options along the top and you could get a Gateways tab. And when you click on that Gateways tab, you get access to your firewalls, so you can manage your NAT rules, your firewalls, networks, and public IPs. Today, the way that you would manage a lot of the advanced settings that we're talking about, network, load balancing, and gateway offerings, you go to the Manage Advanced Gateway settings. And this actually takes you out into the VCD UI portal. And you'll see a bit more of this in the demo towards the end. A quick screenshot shows you the key offerings of the VCD UI, so you can go in and just configure what you want very easily, very quickly, all self-service on demand. So, big question is, can I bring my private IP spaces along? Yes, you can. So, there's a number of ways you can do it. You can do it with source NAT and destination NAT rules. You can use your internal private IP space and move it across, and have different subnets using routing across those with static routes between them. Or you can use things like data center extensions, which Ninad will talk about, that actually allows you to stretch those VLANs across the different sites. So it's very, very customizable. How many people were at the keynote today? How many people stayed to the end to see Simone? Cool. How many people were impressed with the whole migrating their networks across? It's pretty cool, isn't it? So Ninad will talk about that in depth in a little bit with NSX. But even as of today, when we were using vCloud Connector, you could still extend your IP layer 2 using vCloud Connector and data center extensions by leveraging the edge gateways. So there's a lot of customization and a lot of benefits you get from particular use cases where you can actually stretch those layer 2s across. If you're thinking about workload mobility, and we spoke about this a lot of the time through the keynote, it was one of the things that Raghu kept repeating, is workload mobility. You just want to be able to pick up that application and move it to a different site and just deploy it without worrying about, oh, what subnet is it going on, how am I going to get it to connect? You just want everything to shift seamlessly around. So I'm going to hand over to Ninad and talk a lot more in depth about the actual features and how it all works.
Thank you very much, David. So there are two distinct use cases. There's one where you would want to keep the same IP address space when you move the VMs from on-premises onto vCloud Air. And for that, the network address translation feature helps you do that. But there will be instances where you have an application on the cloud which is dependent on some platform services like Active Directory, DNS, etc. In those cases, you would want to stretch your layer 2 so that it's in the same network domain, the same broadcast domain, and applications can talk to other services. So vCloud Air, as of right now, supports L2 extension. This picture over here shows the current way vCloud Air supports network extensions. We call it data center extensions. The data center extension as of right now is managed by a tool called a vCloud connector. And the vCloud connector will set up an edge on the customer side and an edge on the vCloud Air side. It will then set up this SSL VPN connection, which is this red connection from the edge on the customer side on into vCloud Air side. You can use this SSL connection to stretch the layer 2 segment which you want to stretch over. Couple of things to note with the current architecture though, which you want to keep in mind. One is that we right now support extending one VLAN per SSL connection. So in case if you want to stretch multiple layer 2 segments, you would need to set up multiple tunnels and manage it accordingly. Second is, if you can see the red arrow or the red line, the SSL connection doesn't terminate at the top level edge gateway. It in fact terminates at an edge which is deployed inside the cloud. So from a management perspective, you will have to use the vCloud Director Advanced console to manage the edge and the connections and the network which is extended. It's not intuitive enough, it's not managed by the vCloud Air management console up front. And the third thing over here is that the default route, in this case, in this particular picture, is the on-premises router. So 192.168.50.10 is the default router IP address. So all traffic from the vCloud Air side would trombone back onto the on-premises to go out for any kind of access, either internet or any other networks. So as a next version of a data center extension, and what we saw today morning briefly, and again to be very clear, this is on the roadmap, we are actively working on it, we had a demo today morning on this, is using NSX to support the next version of data center extension. So how this works is vCloud connector essentially will set up, and this is conceptual, but vCloud connector will set up a vCloud Air client on the customer side and will set up a SSL tunnel from the client side terminating on the vShield edge on the gateway of the vCloud Air. That gateway will be an NSX enabled gateway. So this new solution solves a few things. Number one, the tunnel will support extending multiple VLANs, so you do not have to manage each individual connection. That red tunnel, you can actually stretch multiple VLANs across from your data center onto vCloud Air. The second thing is that the termination of the tunnel is right at the top level edge gateway. So from a management perspective, you can use the vCloud Air console to manage the top level edge gateway, manage the connection, the L2 extensions, and the networks will show up as org routed networks right up front on the cloud. Third is we will support egress path optimization. So default routes out of, say, the vCloud Air, if you go into the internet, will not need to trombone back to the data center side. It can go directly over the internet. And finally, the packaging of the vCloud client, we envision it to be such that we don't want customers to have a dependency on, say, vCNS or NSX. So the idea would be if you are not using vCNS NSX, you can still use the L2 extension to be able to stretch your networks. Yeah.
Just on that as well, if you go back to the previous slide, it's a really important point that Nanad made there is you don't need to have to buy NSX on your on-premises environment to leverage this. So everything you saw in that demo this morning at the keynote, you don't have to go out and buy NSX. If you need NSX for your use cases, great. But by leveraging this, all you get is what's called the vCloud Air client, which you see there. And then it leverages all the features built into vCloud Air. So that's really, really powerful because lots of people have said to us, well, we don't need NSX, we just want to leverage these particular features for vCloud Air. So it's very important to take that point away. Thanks, Nanad.
Yeah, thank you, absolutely, great point. The next, when we go to customers, we get this question that we have multi-tier applications, three-tier applications, And does vCloud Air have the networking and security capabilities to help support a multi-tier application on vCloud Air? So as David mentioned, when you get a cloud instance, we automatically give you an edge gateway with the cloud instance. And let's take this example over here, right? So there's a 3-tier network, a 3-tier setup, web tier, application tier, and a DB tier, 3 networks. The edge gateway has a set of functionalities which comes out of the box, right? So firewalls, load balancing, VPN, NAT, all of these come right out of the box from the edge gateway capabilities. So you can use the edge gateway firewall to set up the policies for both east-west and north-south traffic policy enforcement. The edge gateway is a stateful edge gateway, and it can be used, as I mentioned, to enforce policies, create a DMZ in this case, or enforce policies between the web tier and application tier, and application and the DB tier. Also, for traffic coming in and out of the internet, the firewall and the edge gateway can be used for that configuration. Secondly, the edge gateway from our infrastructure perspective is built in an HA configuration. So if the edge gateway, the main one goes down, then there will be an HA version to take it over and work with it. From the compliance perspective, the edge gateway is FIPS 140-2 crypto certified and has the common criteria EAL4 certification. So as you bring in enterprise applications and there are questions about security and compliance, the edge gateway does adhere to some of the strictest standards from a compliance perspective. Next up, one of the features obviously which will be needed for a 3-tier or a web tier application would be load balancing. So what you could do is you can set up the web tier in a load balancing server pool and configure load balancing based on multiple algorithms. So we have round robin, you have hash keys based on URI, URLs, least connected, etc. So you can choose your choice of algorithm and set up load balancing over there. And the VIP for the load balancer in this particular case would be the public IP address. So we give two public IP addresses per shared and 3 per dedicated. You can buy more if you want to, but that VIP would be used as the front-end IP address. David Hill has his blog running on vCloud Air. At the end of the presentation, we'll show the demo of his configurations of the firewalls and load balancing to make sure and showcase the configuration which he has for his websites. Direct Connect is another very important feature which we roll out, and it addresses a few questions, right? So customers who get their feet wet with the cloud say, now can I extend my MPLS connection onto vCloud Air? Can I do a cross connect? For example, if you're in the same data center as vCloud Air, can I just do a simple cross connect across? And to doing all those use cases, Direct Connect helps you do that, right? And from a top level view perspective, Direct Connect solves 2 use cases. The one on the top is the cross connect. So if you have colo space in the same data center as we are in and just want to use high-speed cross connects to use vCloud Air, that's a use case which Direct Connect supports. The second one, which is at the bottom, is the long-distance connectivity, right? So if you have an MPLS connection and you want to keep vCloud Air as part of your MPLS cloud, you can do that as well with NSP part. The key over here is that the demarcation point, right? So vCloud Air has connection points, and the customers work with NSP providers or the data center providers to bring the circuit connecting into the vCloud Air connection point. From there on, which is the blue part, that's what the vCloud Air Direct Connect offer will be. It will create a dedicated line, dedicated connection from the switch terminating at the edge gateway. This is a layer 2 access port. To be very clear, that the blue line over there would be a layer 2 access port which supports one L2 segment right now. So going into the bit more detail about the actual architecture of this, right? And so let's look at the setup where on the right hand side we have vCloud Air, the edge gateway, and then there's Direct Connect setup. First of all, By default, when you get an edge gateway, you get one external interface which lets you connect to the internet. When you buy Direct Connect, you will be provisioned a second external interface, which is the red line over here. Right? The second external interface will show up on the edge gateway, and you can use that for the private connectivity. From a connection perspective, the segment from the vCloud Air connection point, which is primarily switches which are in a data center meet-me room or an MDF room, right? From there onto the edge gateway, and that connectivity is a untagged layer 2 connectivity, which brings in one L2 segment. And that comes in two speeds, 1 gig and 10 gig. And 1 gig is something which our VPC customers can use. And for dedicated customers, you can use a 1 gig or a 10 gig speed. The key to note over here is that if you're using an MPLS connectivity as per the current picture over here, the NSP provider needs to have a termination point in the same data center as we are, right? And if your NSP provider, the network service provider, doesn't have that connection, then you have to set up the line. It takes a long time to set up. But it would be good to go with an NSP choice which has connection points in the same data center, and we can give you that information as needed. In this case, a customer has two locations. There's a branch office and there's a headquarters connected via an MPLS connection going into the third segment, which is the vCloud Air instance. And they have three networks, right? So the 10.1.1 is connected to the corporate side, 10.3.3 is connected to the branch office side, and 10.2.2 is going into the vCloud Air side. Now, from a connectivity perspective, the first thing which we would like to do is make sure that the edge gateway can actually communicate to the NSP termination point. So we give customers the capability to configure their choice of IP address or IP address pool on that second external interface. So the 10.2.2.1 which you see over there, that's something which you can choose based on your network configuration, right? This is just an example. But you can choose that network pool. And in this case, the idea would be that the edge gateway needs to communicate to the NSP device. Both need to be in the same segment. So if 10.2.2.2 is the IP address on the port on the NSP side, you configure .1 on the edge gateway, and both of them can communicate. Again, this is the layer 2 connection, untagged layer 2 connection, so it's within the same L2 segment, if you may. Now, from a configuration perspective, this is pretty self-service, right? So let's say, for example, the edge gateway, so the VMs on the vCloud Air want to talk to the branch office, the network inside the branch office, the 192.168.50. So you can set up a static route for that. So you can go to the vCloud Edge, vCloud Director Management Console, identify the external interface. In this case, DIRCON 3000 is the interface ID which we have for the Direct Connect interface. You can say that the segment which I want to connect into is 192.168.50.0 and set up a static route on it saying 10.2.2.2 is the next hop. This is something which you can do from a self-service perspective, sets you up from a connectivity from gateway onto the NSP termination switch into the branch office. So this is just one example, and there could be multiple technologies which you use, VPLS, E-line, a huge range of technologies, right? But the idea being that since the connectivity from the NSP switch into our edge gateway is a layer 2 connection, it can support a whole range of options on the other side of the NSP into your data center. Now, there are customers who say, you know what, we do not want to use the vCloud Air internet access at all. We have security requirements so that we don't want to have VMs connect to or use the internet which you guys give. We have strict security policies and want to make sure that our IPS, IDS, DDoS, etc. are enforced on the premises side before traffic comes to the cloud. So that can be done with the Direct Connect offering over here. So what you would do is you would make sure that the routing is programmed such that there's nothing going out on the internet. So if you can see the picture, there is no internet traffic on the vCloud Air side. And all traffic is going back from that edge gateway onto the on-premises side.
Yeah, so quick show of hands, how many security people are in the room? Cool, will be nice.
Yeah, for them, yeah, good.
But what Ninad's showing you here is very, very common with what customers are doing today when they're leveraging public cloud. They've invested very heavily in their security policies, their security systems on premises, and they don't just want one of these IT admins to spin up a virtual data center, set up a VPN, and then have network traffic coming in through the edge gateway. So what you actually see here is how VMware IT do it today in their data centers for Exchange. So we have run Exchange 2013. We leverage it both on premises and off premises in the public cloud in a true hybrid fashion. But the security people at VMware, they really don't like me because I'm like, yeah, we'll just do this and that and everything. They're like, no, stop. So danger. It's like they're just... So, but what's really important when you look at this is everything that you do today on premises, you can still use those policies and those designs and still leverage everything. So all the traffic just comes into your on-premises site and you just route it over to another site. So for those who were in my session yesterday, are probably sick of me saying this, but as you look at this, there is no difference between a cloud environment and a physical data center that you own. You still leverage the same policies, the same design considerations.
Perfect. No, that's exactly the need. And these use cases come from the customer conversations. So we have customer conversations and our internal usage, and we make sure that we can be flexible enough to support these use cases, right? Similarly, cross connects and a lot of customers who want to own the data because of data privacy issues. And in that case, you can get a customer cage in the same data center as we are. Again, this is something, the customer cage is something which the customer will manage, not vCloud Air. But you can get a cage, you can set up your choice of infrastructure and do a high-speed cross-connect onto vCloud Air to leverage compute.
So when you look at this slide, think about things like storage arrays. If you're wanting to run like tier 1 applications in the cloud, you can actually bring your own storage arrays. So if you want to get out of the data center business, but you still want to leverage your own hardware, you can bring your storage array into a cage in our data centers and just mount that storage into the VMs. So it has to be in guest, so you can't actually mount like VMFS volumes onto our ESXi storage, on our ESXi hosts, but you can mount anything you want from those guests across a network and say leverage like iSCSI or NFS. You can also bring your own physical servers. So if you wanted to bring some ESXi hosts, have your own private cloud, but run it in our data center, and then cross-connect through to your public cloud. It's in the same location, so as you can imagine, speed between the two environments is going to be pretty quick. So there's a lot of customization, customability you can do with that.
Perfect.
Question?
Would it be possible to have a customer cage in one data center and a customer cage in another data center and allow them to talk to each other?
So the question is, can I have a customer cage in one data center and a customer cage in another data center and connect them together? Mr. Product Manager, I'll let you answer that.
So I probably missed the vCloud Air part in that configuration, but assuming that there is a cloud instance as well.
Specifically, like let's say if I wanted to say put a data domain in each of those locations.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Right.
You could exactly do that.
Yeah, you can actually do that. And again, so between those two, again, that will be not primarily a service which vCloud Air will give, but again, there are our NSX friends have the capability to connect both data centers and cross that. But again, if you want to use vCloud Air as part of the configuration, as a three-way configuration, yes, that is possible as well.
And what you're talking about there is another plug for another session I'm doing, is recovery as a service. So when you look at DR, customers are actually looking at that, of putting things like data domain or other backup vendors' physical equipment in those data centers they're going to recover to, because then they can leverage it in the event of a failure.
Yep.
So, yeah. Great question.
Sorry. So the other use case which we are seeing somewhat, and this is for people, again, who have the colo facility in the same data center, right? So they have invested in infrastructure in the same data center and want to use vCloud Air for burst or for extension. So in this case, most of the applications and the dependencies are on their own cage and their own infrastructure, but they want to stretch the layer 2 onto vCloud Air so that if there's a burst, they can use the compute cycles of vCloud Air. But again, the rest of the application stays on premises, and you can do an L2 extension onto the infrastructure, right? So essentially doing L2 extensions over a direct connect link. We can do that with what we call it direct access networks. So if you see at this picture, there is no edge gateway. We bypass the edge gateway and we simply plumb through the L2 adjacency rather directly into the org network. So from a configuration perspective, it's a bit hard to see, but there are 3 options when you create networks. There are 3 options. The first radio button shows the way to do isolated or internal networks. The second radio button is something which says about creating org routed networks, right? Networks which are connecting to the edge gateway and using the services. And the third is, as you call it, connecting directly to an external interface. So you would use that to connect directly the standard 1.1 org network out into the L2 adjacency which is coming in and stretch the networks across the connections across the direct connect connection. So we talked about the vCloud Air networking services and security services, and we talked a lot about the connectivity aspects between your own data centers and vCloud Air. And as customers bring in more business critical applications and web front-ending applications, they ask the question, does vCloud Air have the capability to set up global load balancing or global availability across multiple regions, right? So we have clouds in multiple regions. Can we do global load balancing? Or there is an application running on premises and you want to just have another instance of it on the cloud and still do load balancing, global load balancing. So yes, we do support that with our ecosystem of partners. So one of the partners being Dyn DNS. And this is one use case where we're doing 2 levels of load balancing. So on the customer, in this particular case, has 2 cloud instances, vCloud Air East and a vCloud Air West. And for the local load balancing within the vCloud instance, we use the edge gateway. And then on the top level, we use Dyn DNS for global load balancing between the 2 instances. So over here you can see that there's a pool servers, .11.12 would be a pool server, and then there's a VIP, which is the public IP space on both the clouds, 192.240 and 74.204 on the other cloud instance. Those would be the local load balancing configurations. On the top level global load balancing from Dyn perspective, we would create 2 A records with the web service name and point these 2 IP addresses to that web service. So you can do global level load balancing through a partner such as Dyn and local load balancing through our edge gateway. Now again, there are multiple options over here, but there are configurations in Dyn to do round robin or geo based proximity load balancing, etc. So you can choose your option of global level load balancing. This is a live setup which we have right now, so you can in fact use the browsers to check some of this out. But this is an instance where we have a lab. The gray part is our lab, and in the lab we have a view server. So we are just doing a setup with the Horizon View server, and we have a view server on the lab side, which is this green network, and then that is connecting to some platform applications. Hey, here we go. Yeah. Is this a great clip? Is this a 6.0 again, or?
Is everyone still alive? I had a heart attack.
That was intentional, wasn't it?
Yeah. So you're all awake.
We have the lab side where we have the vCloud server, we have the Active Directory and all the platform applications, and then desktops which are on the Orange network, right? Now, just for load balancing purposes, we have set up another view server up on the cloud, which is the blue part, and from the Dyn configuration perspective, we have configured vmtm.org, and you can go online and actually check it out. vmtm.org will point you in a round robin fashion to the cloud or to our lab. And from the front end or the public IP perspective, if you just type in 65 or 6645 IP address on your browser, it will point to the lab server, and if you do the 69 address, it will take you to the vCloud Air server which we have. So this is a setup which we have live just to have people try it out. And from a configuration perspective, from Dine's configuration perspective, it's pretty simple. We're doing a round robin. We have a global pool of IP addresses across both sides, and we are setting up A records for both of those, and in a round robin fashion. So if you see, there's just both the IP addresses and waiting across. F5, right? So David asked about F5, and is there can we use F5 for load balancing? So absolutely yes. So we can use F5 for a setup where, in this particular case, we're using F5 for both local load balancing and global load balancing. So if you look at this network, the green network NENE, as the gentleman pointed out, we have disabled all firewall, all traffic from public internet coming onto the green network. And the big IP F5 on the cloud side is being used for firewalling and local load balancing. So the VMs on the internal net, the orange network, is being load balanced by the big IP for local load balancing. Simultaneously, if you have F5 on premises, either hardware or a logical virtual appliance, the on-premises BIP5 can talk to the vCloud Air instance, and you can have global load balancing. So for example, if you have an application running on premises and you want to have it on a cloud, you can set up a global level load balancing through F5. Security is another key aspect, right? So things like IPS, IDS, web firewall application services. Does vCloud Air have the capabilities to service all of these enterprise-grade security questions and security services? So again, yes, we absolutely do that with a set of ecosystem providers, and one of them being Trend Micro. This is a setup which our cloud architect, Joe Carvalho, has blogged about. So if you search for Joe Carvalho in the blog, you'll see a detailed information about this along with the Puppet modules to deploy this. But at a high level, what we have is we have indicated a few VMs which you want to protect on the protected VMs. There's one is a window and one is a Windows, one is a Linux application. We would deploy the Trend Micro agents on those VMs. And then the Trend Micro Manager would be on a separate network which would manage the security. Key over here, though, is that the setup does not require that the Trend Micro has to be on the cloud, right? So, for example, if you are a Trend Micro customer, you can use your on-premises Trend Micro to manage the VMs which are on the cloud. The agents will talk over, say, IPsec VPN tunnel onto your premises, and you can have a common management console for all security needs, right? This is just a screenshot and a list of features which you get as part of this service, right? So there's IPS IDS protection, there is web application firewall, log inspection, huge range of security features which you can configure. And it's very simple to configure. So the safe.linux is the name of the VM which we have, which is the protected VM. You select that, you configure the whatever choice of service, IPS, IDS in this case, and deploy the policies as you need. So the key point with all these examples is that while we give our own vCloud Air networking services, the service is open. So we completely understand that enterprises have their choice of devices, and they will want to bring their own choice of device if they want to. And that's where we're saying that as long as it's virtual, as long as it has a virtual appliance, you can bring that over to a cloud and you can use that for your deployment. Disasters. Let's talk about disasters. David,
yeah, so
do that?
I'm not going to go into massive detail on this because I actually have an hour-long session at 4:30 today. But one of the key things from a networking perspective, we have a DR offering, recovery as a service. When you look at what you do on premises with all your virtual machines and you have all your different networks, you replicate that out in the cloud. And the reason why I'm talking about recovery as a service is because most people seem to get it because they've built DR environments of some kind at some point. So you look on the left, that's a kind of typical on-premises data center, you know, a few networks. You obviously would have more from an architectural perspective, but as a snapshot, you have your public networks, maybe a network for your desktops, some corporate network where your AD and those kind of things are running, and then you would replicate that out in the cloud. Now, it doesn't matter whether it's disaster recovery or whether you want to do hybrid or whether you just want to get out the data center business altogether and just leverage public cloud totally. You can replicate everything that you do on premises today in a public cloud. Okay? So I'm going to finish from a PowerPoint perspective and show you a quick demo. I know there's a few of you probably hungry, but we'll have a demo. And while I'm just getting ready with the demo, do we want to have a couple of questions and then I'll show the demo and then we'll finish with some more questions?
Yes, please.
Yep.
Is that replication that you were just showing from private to public, does that piece require NSX?
No, so that does not require NSX. No, we have our own replication service which you can use for replication. Correct, correct. The client which you would deploy on the site.
So, yeah.
Is there a process to build that?
With recovery as a service, come to my session at 4:30 and I'll explain everything.
The plug, the shameless plug, man. Yes, yes, please.
Is IPsec supported external or inside?
So the question is whether IPv6 is supported on the interface. Right now, no, it's not supported on the interface.
So I'll. So
Oh, sorry. Actually, yes. I was corrected by my colleague over here. So we have a government cloud which is coming up in Q4, Q1, I believe, and that will have IPv6 capabilities in that. So we have a vCloud Air government service, and that's where we are focused. That will have IPv6 capabilities.
So I'll walk you through the demo and then we'll open it up for another like 5 minutes of questions. So kind of what I want to show you is just an overview of how simple it is to configure networking within vCloud Air. So here's my blog site. It's actually hosted by vCloud Hybrid Service, so I've not updated the logo yet. But you can see that you can click on the pages, there's lots of flashing movement, and it's just a typical blog site that you would find on the internet. We log into the VCHS UI. Pity I can't type as fast as I can talk. And what you see is, when you log straight in, is you get a list of the cloud regions. So as we were saying, we have multiple data centers in different regions across the globe. So you can see here, I have resources available in Slough, in Texas, and then I scroll down, and I'm actually going to show you our dedicated cloud in Nevada. So we go into Nevada, and you can see here we have a snapshot of all the resources we're using, and we can look at the virtual machines that we have running in all our virtual data centers. So if I sort by name, you can see lots and lots of different virtual machines created by users. You can see my VMs, but because I'm a global admin, I can see everybody else's VMs running in all those virtual data centers. So we're going to focus on a few of them. So I have a jump box, a web front end, and a SQL back end that's providing the database. I can also go directly into my own data center, which is called a technical marketing team, and you see the VMs that are running just in that virtual data center. If I go to the Gateways tab, you can see there's a number of gateways for different people. I click on the one that's titled my name, and you can see here that I've actually created 3 different networks. Now they're all routed because you can see that they're cold routed, but I have 3 networks, one for public web access, one for normal public access, and then I have a SQL internal network, but it's still routed through the edge gateway, so the firewall can protect it, but the other services on these networks can access it. So if I go to the NAT rules now, you can actually see the number of NAT rules that I've set up and configured for these services. Now, quick show of hands, who configures firewalls quite regularly? Okay. Who enjoys it? There's only my colleague, Chris Calotti, who enjoys it. I'm not a big fan of firewall rules, but it's something that you need to understand when you're configuring services. So Most people who do it are because they want to protect their environment. So you can do exactly the same in vCloud Air, and it's very simple. We have a number of options where we can disable, we can delete, we can add one, and you can manage them accordingly. So you can see I've got a few going from a public IP address directly to a VM, but I've also done some for specific subnets. So you can see that I've opened a whole subnet, the 10.0 and the 200.0 out to the public IP address, so any VM on that network has access out to the internet. And then we do the firewall rule, so I have RDP coming in, I have allow anything outbound, because I'm not too concerned about who goes out, because it's only me. And then you can see I've set up things like RDP, HTTPS to get to the web server. So it's very common standard practice that you can do. If you want to do any of the advanced features that we were talking about, you go through to vCloud Director, you get a similar UI, and you can see we list all the edge gateways again, and we go to Edge Gateway Services. And this is where you can configure your NAT rules again, your DHCP, firewalls. We can do load balancing, as Ninad was saying. And you can configure your VPN connections if you want to do cloud to cloud. So, very intuitive interface to allow you to actually go and configure these services. And that is essentially what we want to show you, is how simple it is. Now, most people, when you show a demo, don't believe you that it actually works. So I log in, and please don't hack me. I log into my jump box, and what I've actually done is I have 2 jump boxes for different services, just purely from an isolation perspective, but you can log in through RDP, and if you really want to go and try and connect, it's open just at the moment. And then you can log in and you can jump from all these different services to the different tiers within that. So I'll kind of skip through a little bit. And as anyone who uses Windows 2012 without the new update, you don't get the start button, so you have to run everything manually. That's a different topic. But as you can see, we just connect through. I can then RDP onto my web server from this jump box. I can connect to my SQL server to open the database. So it's very standard with what you would do in a production environment, building out your multiple tiers of web services, your application services, however you want to do it. So I'll log into my database server. But you can't connect to any of these unless you're on particular individual VMs, because they're all protected through the firewalls. Okay? So it was just a kind of like recap to show you how simple it is. It's very intuitive. The whole point of cloud is it's on demand. It's on self-service. Got on demand on the brain. It's self-service, so you can just go in, do what you want, as you want to do it, when you want to do it, in exactly the same way you do on premises today. The last thing I want to finish on is Bill Fathers mentioned yesterday that we're launching our OnDemand service, which is our pay-as-you-go service where you can sign up for and just use your credit card to pay for services in the cloud. It's open for a beta, and if you want to go to that URL, then you can actually sign up for the beta and you'll hopefully get selected, and then you can play around with it. Okay? So thank you for coming, and we'll open it up for the last few questions for the last 5 minutes.
Yes, please.
Yeah,
yes.
Question. Do you want to, for the questions, you want to go to the mic, and then we'll just follow up afterwards.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Oh yes, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so with not with the vCloud Air Edge Gateway, but with our partners through FI or 9, yes, that can be a global load balancing approach. So, absolutely.
Yeah, what you saw there was if you want to load balance across multiple sites, You can't do that as an edge gateway because they're obviously sat on the core of your networks. But by leveraging like services from Dyn or other providers, you can do load balancing across multiple sites. You can even do it across multiple geographies. So you can do like on-premises on the East Coast, your cloud on the West Coast, another cloud in the UK, and load balance across all of them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The other question was, certainly you mentioned all the modern features that are provided. Does it change or when you have multiple tenants?
No.
No.
So all the features that we showed you fit within every single tenant. So if you spin up multiple clouds in different environments, you can leverage all the features between them. So you can connect between those clouds. You can connect all those clouds back to on-premises if you want to, and just leverage everything. Nothing changes the more you spin up. You get the same set of services. Yes. So and that's why if you remember back to dedicated cloud where we're saying you can spin up multiple edges, you can leverage different firewall rules for each edge. Okay? Cool.
So 2 questions.
Yep.
The firewall rules, do you do object groups or anything so you're not managing individual ACLs?
So not yet. So right now it's managing individual ACLs, but I think as we incorporate more of some of the NSX capabilities, we will be addressing that. But
Okay.
as of right now, it's single ACL.
Yeah.
And then for transport, you were mentioning the one-to-one VLAN to SSL VPN mapping you're doing now. Is that because you're using TCP or using DTLS?
So what is the question?
So what do you use, when you're doing the VPN, the SSL VPN, what's the transport?
The transport is the IPsec VPN.
Oh, it's
so
okay, standard IPsec, okay.
it's just literally IPsec, so you connect at both ends.
Yep.
So if you want to stretch multiple layer 2 connections, you have multiple VPN connections.
So you're not doing an SSL VPN, you're doing an IPsec VPN.
No, yeah.
Okay.
So, and then going forward, when NSX is fully integrated, you'll be able to stretch as multiple VLANs across that NSX connection.
Okay, and one last question, sorry. Do you have any quality of service controls?
Sorry?
Any quality of service controls in your?
Yeah. So right now, not for the internet-based traffic, but then when you get a direct connect line, then we guarantee the speed which you have. So we are not giving, as of right now, we are not giving QoS capabilities on the edge gateway. But if you have a direct connect line, then you get your 1 gig or 10 gig speed.
But you're not doing DSCP
No,
or
not yet.
or
No.
class service?
Yeah,
Okay.
not yet.
Right,
Yeah.
thank you.
So,
Yeah. I think.
Yeah, go.
Yeah, you mentioned that you don't actually have to have entitlements for the full up vCNS or NSX to start. Okay, we're looking at trying to start, put some non-prod in air.
Yeah.
But we only have vCloud Suite Standard, which I think is in vCNS Essentials entitlement.
Yeah.
How does that look going forward? How, are we going to have something that sort of converts to sort of a NSX Essentials or?
Yeah. So we are still working out the details on that. But what we want to do is we want to make sure that the vCloud connector essentially is the product which helps you connect to air, and that will have the required components, be it vCNS, be it NSX, to do the connectivity part. So we'll not be changing the suite itself, or there may be some thoughts about suite itself, which is not what we'll be focusing on. We'll be focusing on that the connector part gives the required set of software to do the L2 extension.
I think vCloud Suite Standard includes the connector, but I'm not sure.
The vCloud connector is a free tool. You can use it. There's no charge.
It's free to anyone. So.
Because I know our entitlement doesn't include Edge, for instance.
Yeah,
So-
but then you can use the vCloud connector for just the
And
for
that's
the
in the
connectivity.
future, right? That's
Can
not
we
right now.
take his question because they're trying to throw us out, and then do you want to grab us in the corridor and we can talk more? Cool. Yes.
You said the next version of the vCloud client will have path optimization to prevent the tromboning issue.
Yes.
Will this feature be available to NSX if you have a private cloud, if you want to do layer 2 extension with NSX?
So did you get the question?
So he just wants to know the whole tromboning piece you were talking about.
Yeah.
Can you leverage that in just a private cloud with NSX?
Yeah, so in fact, there are a lot of the NSX sessions right now we're talking about that. So you can use that L2 extension capabilities, which NSX is launching for private cloud as well. Yeah.
So it's not available yet.
Yeah.
It's coming.
Yes, with this next N1K, yes.
Next version. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for coming. Thanks for staying till the end. Hope you enjoy your lunch.